Greetings, everybody. Nina here with Beyond Truth, and welcome, everybody. Robert, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm going to telepathically think about and see if everybody knows what I'm thinking. Got it? Okay, we're good.
I can hear the dogs going in the background there when we start talking. That's kind of funny. But yeah, welcome, everybody. Tonight we do have a special guest, and I do believe you're going to have a good time here. A lot of good energy with this guest. So I'm going to get going with the bio here so we can bring her in and get going with the thing right away. But before I do, though, make sure you smash that thumbs up button, okay, and share this out to a couple people. There's going to be a lot of great information in here that I don't think you've gotten other places. So make sure you do that before we get going. But tonight we are having Lesley Mitchell-Clarke, who is a Toronto-based certified clinical hypnotherapist who specializes in numbers of modalities, including working with individuals who feel that they have had experiences with extraterrestrial beings. Okay, so we're going to be talking a lot about ETs and aliens and all that good stuff. So just stay tuned, everybody. Most of this fascinating work, as well as metaphysical therapists, such as past life and inner life regression, takes place at Lesley's Toronto Hypnosis Clinic, which is called Lightwork Hypnosis. Prior to her work in hypnotherapy, Lesley has also had a busy career as an actor, dancer, and vocalist. And for the past 20 plus years, she has also been a top jazz and arts media consultant with an array of Grammy and Juno awarding clients, as well as major jazz festival and record labels. Lesley is currently the director of LMC Media, with offices both in Toronto and Lesley's hometown of New York City. She is also a busy art writer, contributing regularly to a variety of publications. So here we go. Now let's see. We'll get Lesley up in here. Hi, Lesley. How you doing?
I'm exhausted.
After that long intro.
I feel like that. Indian goddess Shiva with the 8 arms. Going out doing all those different things. But well, there you have it. That's c'est moi.
Yeah, well, for those of us who are a little bit up in years, our resume is starting to get longer and longer, isn't it? You start seeing all the things we've done. It's which is a privilege, though, to get older. So there you go. But yeah, we can't wait to hear about you and what you've been up to, and of course the whole ET alien thing. That's the hot topic right now, and so we can't wait to dive into that. So wherever you want to get started, Lesley, we'll go from there.
Well, I think I first became interested in this subject matter years before I was a therapist of any kind. When Eric von Daniken's film Ancient Aliens came out, like his little Super 8, his little film, little documentary, I saw that, and it changed my life forever, because it sort of clarified what I had always felt that I knew to be true. And then I did have a number of personal experiences when I was a young actor, working at the Black Hills Playhouse. And the Black Hills of South Dakota is a pretty mystical area anyway. It is a sacred ground to the Lakota people. It's a no-fly zone, and I was working at a summer theater there and had a number of sightings and things happen to me. So I was always very, very interested in the subject matter. Now, many years later, when I decided to, take the training necessary to become a hypnotherapist and go through that whole process, I was working for a kind of a snazzy practice in, our downtown area called the Ontario Hypnosis Center, where Shirley MacLaine came regularly. It had a kind of a celebrity clientele in a way, but despite that, maybe once a month, someone would call in and say, I think something has happened. I've had some missing time. I can't remember, and I woke up and my pajamas were on backwards, or whatever they were saying, and my colleagues just said, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. But to me, I'd already been trained in. It was pretty proficient in past life regression and interlife regression. So I thought, please direct these people towards me. And that's kind of how that all began. Eventually, I started working with MUFON. And at the time, Kathleen Martin, who's probably been on your show, she's wonderful, wonderful lady, author of multiple books. She was the director of a experiencer research program that went on for 10 years. And so I did many of the regressions that were utilized in that particular study. So that really set things off in a very specific direction. And about 12 years ago, maybe longer than that now, I think longer, I began my own little podcast, which started out on Blog Talk Radio. And we're now on an array of platforms, but there are very few people in this realm of interest that I have not interviewed. So it's been a tremendous learning experience for me. And along the way, I've been really blessed to either, direct some conventions or be a speaker. Particularly recently, I was at the Conscious Life Expo in Los Angeles. And so that's always a very inspiring and marvelous kind of thing to do. And I do have I have a book that tells the very detailed story of one particular client that I was able to work with for many sessions, and it's called Intersections. So that's what I've been doing. Right now I'm getting ready to do a few speaking engagements this summer. And of course I continue working with individuals, and it may surprise you, but I'm really able to do this kind of work on Zoom. You wouldn't think so, but during the COVID, those of us that do this kind of work had to really hone our skills. And I'm telling you that now I can work with anybody from any part of the world as long as we can coordinate our timing. So that's wonderful. And
is it similar to like Dolores Cannon type of hypnotherapy or no?
Very. In fact, if you look at any of the recordings of Dolores Cannon doing her thing, we're all sort of Adlerian hypnotherapists, and my work is very closely related to the work done by Dr. Cannon, who used regression techniques to allow memories to come forward of the experiences that people have had. And that's really what's going on. And memory blocks are used, but the thing is that memory blocks don't last forever. And they, many of the beings that feel that they need to do that don't have a full understanding of how our consciousness and how our brains work. In the same way that they don't understand sleep necessarily. They also don't understand that for us, it is psychologically harmful to have our memories suppressed. It's not like we just walk around, la-da-da, everything's fine. We have creepy feelings, and then PTSD-like symptoms emerge. So I'm in the business of blowing up those memory blocks. But, usually, speaking of memory blocks, I will also say that even with our government and ET connected programs, they have not been able to develop. There is no such memory block that can last longer than 25 years or 20 years, which is probably why many of my clients come to me in midlife when they start having what I would call breakthrough memories. And that's usually when they seek out someone who can, work with the subconscious, as opposed to, most psychiatrists and psychologists aren't taught those techniques in our country, or in North America, I should say.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
I see you got something you want to say there, Robert.
What?
Just jump in anywhere, Robert. Anywhere you can fit in, just jump in.
Well, I do. I think this is great. Using this technology, as you were saying, doing a Zoom meeting and actually being able to do the regression there. because like you were saying, reminds me of being in South Dakota. I used to go to, me and some friends would take a trip to Mitchell or South Dakota over
I
there.
know exactly where it is. The Corn Palace is there, where the Three Stooges played.
The Corn Palace. Well, on one of our trips there, we went there to the exotic animal sale that they have over that way. And that's once a year in like February, I think it is, where they even sell some buffalo. They round them up off of Custer State Park and, sell some buffalo, and then have llamas and ostriches and camels. I remember going to check in, and here's a baby camel in the waiting room where you get your number, and I'm thinking, oh, I love this place. This is great. It's like going to a zoo, and you get to buy things. Anyway, on the way back from the Corn Palace area there, Mitchell, we ran into an ice storm, and we pulled over in some little rinky-dink town that was known, maybe even know the place probably, where they had a bunch of little cabins set up, and people would travel across the country to where the psychic people all would go during the summer to catch the tourists that would
like Lilydale in upstate New York, like that. A community.
I never heard of Lilydale, but I mean, like I said, we pulled off and we didn't know where we were really, but the guy at the bar, we stopped there to ask directions and see if we could find a hotel or a motel or something. And he was telling us all about this town. And he says, it's pretty deserted here, he says, because in the summer, the psychic people come and they go in all those cabins out there, and people come from all over the place, all over the states, and they stop here to get their fortunes read and their, things like you were talking about. But now here's the future, and now we can do it over Zoom meetings, and you don't have to travel thousands of miles to get to where you go to meet you and have you regress and find out what's wrong with you.
Right. You just have to, suspension of disbelief. You just have to see beyond the screen. Now, for myself, as an older person, I mean, I've always done some work online, and we had stuff that interrupted. What was the terrible service? I haven't used it in years, trying to think what it was. But anyway, I've always done some. But when COVID came along, it was, if I don't figure out a way to treat these people, they're not going to get help. And I can't psych myself out by thinking I can't do this. So I had a kind of a epiphany. I think I was, but I felt in the beginning like I was throwing my energy up against the screen, and it was like bouncing there and not going through. I just sort of convinced myself that it was just like being in the same room. And of course, the young whippersnappers, they prefer it. They really see no difference. I mean, I'm not kidding you. They see no difference between being online with someone and being in the room. It's all the same to them. So I just, now the problem with the regression session is these are long sessions. So what I generally do, if it's possible, is if I'm working with someone and we're doing a regression process, I see if their partner or a good friend can be there with them to reestablish the connection if the connection is dropped. And that's what used to happen all the time on Skype. That's what I was trying to think of. Yeah.
That's what I was worried about too. Or you're sitting, because a friend of mine was taking the Dolores Cannon course or whatever, and he wanted to do this over. And I'm like, well, what if you can't wake me up? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm sitting here and I can't get out of the hypno thing, and the internet goes down. Now I'm sitting here, you know what I mean?
Well, eventually everybody just comes out after a few minutes. You're not asleep.
Oh, okay. You're not going to be down forever.
No. That has to be reinforced. I have to continue deepening and keeping it. No, that has to be reinforced. Now, the deepest trance states are what we call the Esdale state, or sometimes it's called hypnotic coma. And the only reason I would ever bring anyone that deep is it used to be fairly common for me to go into hospital And if, say, someone had to have a spinal tap and they were allergic to lidocaine or whatever, and I will freeze using hypnosis the area where the process is going to happen. So I used to do that quite a bit, and for that I would really put people in a deep trauma, but remember, I mean deep coma, but remember, they've got to be able to talk to me. And so my job is to keep that client or that patient in the alpha state, and maybe dipping down into the theta state, but not into the delta state, which is sleep, which is what we call sleep. So
I remember I had it done once, and it felt like you was just hovering around just before you go to sleep.
And that's exactly what it's like. And that's why when I'm doing, hypnotherapy, when I'm working on pain management or addiction or whatever it is, if I'm trying to elicit some kind of change, we use repetition to our advantage. And I have people listen to their session, which I record before they go to sleep, because that's when the brain is doing many of the same things that occur in a hypnotic state.
Now, I see one of the questions here, staging or screen memory. What is that? What is that?
Well, screen memories and staging are something that I hear about an awful lot. Now, it seems that many beings that we engage with have what we call psionic abilities. In other words, they're able to project environments and images telepathically into our minds, so that we are not as disturbed about where we actually are, which is probably on a big ship, So I see a lot of staging is used when they're dealing with children. Now, I don't want anyone to get disturbed by this, because I have never in my whole career come across a situation where a child was harmed in any kind of way, except in our combined Black Ops programs, which is something that is, there are no rules. And you see how horrendous we are as a people with our wars, and they have no rules. So they're an ungovernable part of our infrastructure that has been dealing with ETs since Roswell. So staging is often used. For instance, I can tell you a story about that you might find interesting. So I was working with an experiencer, and first of all, I'll say, I don't think there is any such thing as anyone who has had one experience. I think experiencers have had experiences since they were children that they don't remember. I don't think it really happens out of the blue in that kind of way. I think there is a history, a pattern, because I think that they do follow bloodlines, individuals who have a genetic predisposition to psychic ability. So, but children can become very frightened, so they use screening. First of all, they don't let them themselves be seen very often, depending on what kind of being they are. Now, there are many very humanoid beings, Pleiadians, Lyrans of any kind, really, the Yael, and these beings can just mix about with us. They are our cousins, if you will. We share DNA with them. I don't know how, but we do. So there are those beings, but there are also very benevolent beings that are reptilian. There are benevolent beings that are insectoid, and they never want to frighten the children. So usually they're cloaked. They'll be walking on either side of the child if they're taking them somewhere. So my client was aware that he was taken in the usual way out of his bedroom, going through the roof, I am not sure if it's just the astral body that they take sometimes, or if sometimes they take the physical body and the etheric body. I do think it's a combination of both things. But anyway, in this instance, this was a very physical experience. So my client found himself in an environment that was supposed to look like a kid's birthday party, like your typical Victorian era home in, the American Midwest, or in, Toronto, where they were just in a regular house, and all the kids were sitting in a circle. And the interesting thing is, some of the kids looked like they were asleep when they were sitting there. In other words, they were not conscious. They had their heads down. Some of the kids were just sort of spaced out. And my client was all there and just looking at how strange this all was, and how it wasn't right, and he didn't like it, and it felt fake. And, he was getting to be a tween, so he's getting to be a little sassy, in these programs. Now, at a certain point, because this was all about examinations, and I don't mean terrifying probing, I don't mean anything like that, but this was about checking in on these kids and doing their little examinations, which are benign. So out of this other room comes a being who is wearing a doctor's coat, but is dressed like a clown. I mean, like a really scary clown. Now, here's something where they just didn't get it. They don't know that, I think it's called onophobia. It's one of the most common phobias that people have, fear of clowns. And so all the kids that were awake started to scream, ah! And then my guy, who was being a little, he like tossed over some furniture, and he started yelling too. And then he said, within about 5 seconds, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, bam, he landed back down in his bed as if he was dropped from like 10 feet.
Wow.
So that is an example. That's an example of staging. People have reported to me all kinds of things where they find themselves at a racetrack, or here or there, and it is generally a psionic attempt to project another kind of environment so that they can get through whatever fact-finding thing that they're doing, and get through it easily without upsetting anybody. So that's we see a lot of that, in answer to your question, and particularly with children and young people.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we did come on the show here, and there's probably a lot more people who have had experiences and then what they realize or remember. Maybe I had an experience myself. But I don't remember any. There was definitely some time lapse and no memory of the actual thing. So
it is far more common than you would imagine. Now, as we were talking earlier, and I mentioned that the figure of reported cases of encounters of different kind is about 14 million. That's about the size of New York City, maybe a little bigger. But and I often think about those stories or those encounters that are not reported. And, sometimes, Nina, what happens is I'm like what we call the last chance Texaco. Many experiencers have been through a very upsetting process of being examined by psychiatrists and psychologists. Sometimes they've been put on medication. Sometimes they've been told there's nothing wrong with you. We don't know what it is. But whatever has happened, many people have been through a long siege of having no answers, not being believed. And so it is a blessing just to be able to get these dear people into a trance state so that they can recover these memories and begin to integrate them and understand that they are special people who are part of our future world. And that's incredibly relieving. And I think, as I also said earlier, the phenomena of encounters is not limited or confined to any specific demographic, any financial strata, any racial or religious situation. Mm-hmm. I have had people of every description. I've had lawyers, doctors, a lot of educators. In fact, if I were to say, what is the field of business that most experiences are in, I would have to say education. It's overwhelming, and I've never really done a study. I told Kathy Martin, but we didn't really. I bet she has the information to run that through some kind of a program, and input. How many exactly what percentage of experiencers are involved in the teaching profession? But I would say it's a lot. Nurses, caregivers. Are very high up there on the scale of people. They're compassionate people. They're open, generally speaking. So this is a phenomena. Oh, something? I bet you might not know this. Do you know who reported the first UFO sighting in what we call the continental United States?
No.
Thomas Jefferson.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh.
Thomas Jefferson and his the guy that ran his estate, they saw a craft flying together over the field at Montebello, I think. Is that what it's called? His estate? Yeah. So so that was the first recorded account of a what do they call? I don't say UPA or whatever.
UAP or something.
So that and of course, the encounters with ETs. I mean, the Bible is full of them. The Holy Quran is full of them. The Torah is full of them. It's I could do a whole afternoon just on that. So this is nothing new. I believe there was a time in humanity, in the existence of humanity, in the Atlantean times, Lemurian times, where communication with other beings was so commonplace and we were so integrated. I think we are even carrying DNA markers from that time. One of the most probable ones is probably Rh negative, which no other animal or species has on the planet. So there are the people that are visiting us. Many groups of those people, as I said, are our galactic cousins in a sense, and they're trying their best to influence us to save our planet. These are the messages people are getting.
This is what I was going to ask you. After all of this research and all this stuff that you've done, like, what have you come back with? Like, as far as information from them, do we have a lot of information as to why they're doing this? What's happening?
Yes, I think we really do, and I think planet Earth is very unique in the sense that we have a lot of diverse life forms here, and a lot of beings at different stages of development. I'm not sure that other cultures are as much like that. They kind of seem more to move together in an elevated consciousness. Whereas, I mean, we've got beautiful souls like Deepak Chopra, and we've got, Charles Manson. So we have a lot of diversity here in life. And I think there is also a large probability that there are populations of different types of cryptids that also may exist here. I think it's very possible that there are also ancient beings who I don't think they live in the center of the earth, but I think there are great cavernous pockets where there have been civilizations. So nothing is that simple. But the message that we get, that people like myself get, I should say, is repetitive. You're destroying your planet. You're destroying your future. Get rid of fossil fuels. Clean up your environment. Respect the environment. Everyone has a soul and is created equal. There are no divisions. It is a universe of oneness. You know, these are the messages. So basically, it's get rid of your racism, get rid of your desire to blow up the other, you know, for whatever reason that may be, and get with the program. But I think it's very, very frustrating. Now, what's going on now, politically and socially, I think, is a kind of a culling, because you can't really fight lies, corruption, pedophilia, and you know, all these other horrible things unless you know where it is. And from the things that have come out, I would have never believed that there was such a rotten center to our civilization. I would not have believed that there were still Klansmen marching, you know, but now, because of these extremists, we have really been able to take a look at what's going on, and we know what needs to be changed. And I think even politically, the Republicans and the Democrats are coming together finally, because we know what we will not tolerate as beings, you know. And so I think that the advanced beings that we engage with are always trying to uplift our consciousness. They're always trying to show us a positive outcome if we take care of, you know, X, Y, and Z, because we would be ruining this beautiful planet, not only for ourselves, but for all the animal life, the other beings of different awarenesses who are here, and the many ETs who have decided to live here. So there's a lot in the balance. Now, I touched a little bit on it earlier, there are many types of beings that are engaging with us.
Off the top of your head, excuse me on this one, but this has got my curiosity up. But you know, you talk about the multiple beings and stuff. Off the top of your head, how many could you say there is?
Well, I'll tell you this, you know, one of our late politicians in Canada, who was privileged to have a lot of insider information before he passed, and he was deputy prime minister for a term, he said that in the Canadian government's records, there are 42 different species. So it's a lot. There are a lot of grays. There are a lot of different types of grays, and I think some of them are amenable to us, you know, the Ebens, you know, and also the being that Daryl Anka channels, Bashar and his people. I mean, there are grays that are also quite humanoid. They're a hybrid species somehow. There are reptilians. Now, the reptilians can be problematic, but apparently we have agreements and treaties with the peaceful ones, and there are peaceful reptilians. Now, this is going to sound a little far out, but I have worked with several individuals who were involved in what I would call the secret space program. We touched on that a little bit, and they were billeted. They were stationed on Mars, and apparently underground on Mars are indigenous populations of reptilians. Some of them are quite primitive. Some of them have the capability of space flight and are also highly psionic. They are highly, highly psionic. So there are some dangerous species of reptilians, but I was also told by this same individual that from all the years of having, the Lunar Defense Force and the Mars Defense Force, we pretty much control who comes into our galaxy. I mean, who comes into our solar system. That's there. So we're not really sitting there like ducks, like, Ronald Reagan would have had us believe, or, we don't need the Star Wars Defense Force. We already have, it's already happened. It's already happened. We have 2 parallel space programs. We have the NASA thing that plods along, and then we've got the stuff that happened because of both given technology and stolen technology. So and reverse engineered technology.
This is one of those questions that me and Nina get in an argument sometimes over, but we know about, say, Roswell and the Germans with the spacecraft and getting extra technologies and all of that. But were there, if we're in control of our whole solar system now, did that just happen since the 40s and 50s?
Yeah, I think
it's been going on a lot longer than that.
No, I think that when we look at the the secret space program, the Black Ops, the whole thing came about as a result of having nuclear weapons and the Roswell crash, 2 events that roughly coincided. Now, there is if any of your listeners out there are interested in this particular time in ufology and history, there's a wonderful book called The Day After Roswell by the late Philip Corso, who was a general, I believe, by the time he retired. Now, in his narration, in his book, he talks about how, well, first of all, there wasn't one Roswell crash, there were 3. And there were beings that survived. And it was during that time where they had these beings that a negotiation was made. And we call this the Truman Agreement. And later it's called the Eisenhower Agreement. But apparently what happened is President Truman was faced with this. Here are extraterrestrial beings. They have superior everything. And all they want is to take a few skin samples because they can no longer reproduce. So that's what they told. That was what they were presenting. And in exchange, they were going to give us technology which we could handle. So all of a sudden, we've got integrated circuit boards. We've got all kinds of laser technology, fiber optics. All of that now comes into play way before the time when it would naturally have occurred. Now, Velcro, by the way, that was in there too, Velcro. It's true. But so this agreement now, unfortunately, these Greys from Zeta Reticuli who made this agreement did some pretty horrible things. Yes, they were studying how to reproduce. They used human women as incubators. There were hybrid children that were produced. I mean, there was no boundaries to what was happening. They took sperm from men. I mean, it was just as horrible for men as it was for women, but they engaged in that. And then but the one thing they did is they honored their agreement. It timed out, I'm going to say, in the late 80s. The agreement timed out. So now if someone comes to me and has had that kind of experience where their ova was taken or they were shown children that they would be people who are a little more senior.
Yeah, because like I said, me and Nina, we talked about this and we noticed that there was an abrupt change to our technology and our history. To put it plainly, I'm a big history buff, and so I collect a lot of books from the 1800s, and I
Mm-hmm.
read them. It seems that the history books started changing, and then started getting uniform, and a lot of things were left out as soon as the 1900s happened, and then all of a sudden we improved on everything, and then all of a sudden it's everything started moving really, really fast.
Well, that's why it happened. And the way that this secret investigative agreement and all the stuff went with it was able to exist is they excuse me, the government parceled out various things to the big tech giants, like Air Force. Like, here, you guys at McDonnell Douglas, you've got fiber optics. You guys over here at the Skunk Works, figure out how this metal works, this like tinfoil. I mean, they parceled it out. So I think that a lot of people who worked on these things in reverse engineering probably thought it was Russian technology, because the Cold War was then upon us. So I think they didn't do anything to discourage that idea, and in fact, Corso and his officers, they were running what they called the Department of Foreign Technology. Well, it was foreign, all right. So this is how it started. And once they I read some fact that there about how many trillions of dollars are actually missing that have gone into these secret space program, these black ops programs that still exist to this very day. In fact, sometime, we don't have time now, but we should talk about the 20 and back and the experiences of like Colonel Randy Kramer and some of these other fascinating guys. But that's kind of a whole area in it unto itself, I would say.
It really is. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because those experiences, I mean, like you were saying earlier, how there's the black ops people who take kids and still do things, and humans, it seems like are the only species that kind of attacks its own self.
I know.
The other species are all about them, and we're not so much like that.
I know, it's interesting, isn't it? And, there's a very high a commonality also that a lot of experiencers seem to have is they had parents or a parent in the military, and they were available on bases. So a lot of these things being taken out of school to go do like whatever, these things happened on bases. Particularly we have, I don't know if you've ever heard the expression, the dew line, but it's right there above you in North Dakota. We have 11, 13 military bases that are Canadian and US run, that were designed to be able to deal with the Russian threat should they lob some missiles at us. And so that's called the dew line. And those bases are many of the people I work with who had a military parent were stationed in those locations with their families in military housing,
The whole taking the kids out of school might sound kind of foreign today, because that doesn't happen. But back when we were kids, I remember growing up in Norway, they would just come and grab you to go to the dentist or whatever. You had to go 2-3 blocks all by yourself. Parents didn't know. That was normal. Yeah.
Yep. No, it wasn't a big deal until the helicopter parents of the 90s. It really wasn't. But yes, they would. One young man that I was working with told me that regularly in school, a guy in a military uniform would come in and just say, "I have to take Jeff to," and okay, whatever. And whatever, and Jeff would be gone, and Jeff would be gone for maybe a day, but when he came back, time was unaffected. It was only about a half hour later.
Right.
So space-time can be messed with. It's pliable. And there are some technologies that we've explored, like the Montauk chair, dealing with, time travel and what have you. So that seems also to be a bit of an element that can be used in ET encounters where they mess about with time.
Now, going back to the the nuclear stuff, because that's definitely something that's on high alert right now. Everybody's worried about, what's going on. And, like, I've heard that they have dismantled our nukes.
Many
they're
times.
not going to allow us to do that.
They are not. And the reason is because nuclear fission, it destroys the fabric of space-time.
Right.
So yes, we'd level ourselves, but worse stuff would happen. I mean, terrible stuff would happen in our neighborhood. They will not allow it. There is evidence where they have turned the nukes off. They will not allow it. So I don't think that that's something that we really, it's a horrible consideration. And certainly we want nuclear controls. We want everybody to toe the line and do what they should do. But I don't think we have to worry about going out that way.
Now, going also back to what we were talking about, all these horrible things happening in the world. Well, it turns out it's all our politicians and our leaders and the people in charge that are doing those horrible things. So, have you heard any good news? Like, is there anything in the works where they're planning on?
Oh, I think we're cleaning house.
Okay.
I think everything is I don't think anything will ever be the same again after we wash the stench of the Trump administration out of the White House. I honestly think that has been such a wake-up call to all people, because that's what's happening now. Yeah. The Republicans and Democrats are coming together because they're human beings, and yes, there's going to be his fringe people, and then just the horror, the moral horror of a president who has been mentioned 5,300 times or more in the Epstein files. And I think what we're going to see is photographic and video evidence presented, and it's probably already been filed with the court in evidence. And because what we know about people that do these kinds of hideous things is they love to take pictures.
Well, did you notice Bill Clinton in the courtroom? He couldn't he was loved looking at the pictures.
Yeah.
He was smile on his face, like he was just really like reliving the whole thing. It was just disgusting.
Yeah, it is.
So I get that part of it.
It is. Yeah. It is disgusting. It's all it's beyond disgusting. So I think we will be chastened, and we will come into a new era where we care for each other as we should, and where we have the capability to feed every hungry child in this world.
There's no reason why we shouldn't. I know.
So I think.
Do you think that, like, you would almost think that all these horrible things to children, all this kind of thing, it can't be humans doing this, like, or is it, like, or do you think that there is ETs actually that's behind our leaders that are getting them? I don't think
we need any trouble being horrible to each other.
That's true.
I personally don't. I don't think is it possible? I suppose anything's possible. I suppose there could be negative entities that are sadistic or whatever, but I have not come across those communications. I think in that sense, we're talking more about demonic presences.
Right.
And I wouldn't doubt that. I wouldn't doubt that. So I'm open to whatever, but I think that we don't need any trouble being barbarians. We're about that far, away from that behavior. So
the idea, sad to say that's true.
Yeah, but the idea
we're not, but we are, I guess.
The idea is that we can evolve. Many people are very evolved. We have no idea of our own capability. We've forgotten who we are. We have forgotten who we are. And I think in order to continue as a civilization, we have to go through this very painful period right now where we do our best to cut out the cancer.
Right.
And so I for one, I feel excited because I think we're coming to the finish line of what has been the most horrifying chapter in the life of the United States, in its young life, right?
Yeah.
Well, speaking from a history standpoint, it seems that most of the encounters that people had, or races or whatever had before, were mostly good things. Like they brought them technology, like how to water your plants and how to grow different things, and medicines, and building techniques, and how to conduct societies,
schools,
government,
libraries, justice. Yes. We have a whole chapter in our human story that is lost to global amnesia. And the people that can remember usually do it through, since our lives were also truncated and shortened, but people who through past life regression, like the great Edgar Cayce, can tell us things about the Atlantean civilization and the Lemurian civilization, which extended all over the South Pacific. So we're missing a chapter, but we worked benevolently with beings from everywhere.
And only in certain times were there, like in the Hind, or is it the Brahma India stuff, where they were talking about missiles coming from the sky, and
they had battles. There were battles. There were Vimanas. There were battles. In fact, there is I wish I had it to show you. There's a woodcut, because that's all they had during the medieval times, and this is from Germany, Hanover, Germany, in like the 1500s, and there is a woodcut of a space battle that went on for like 2 days. They have the craft blown. They have there are things they don't know how to express, but it went on. So there have been battles between ETs that we're not really tuned into. We really don't know a whole lot about that, but but it happened.
But it doesn't. But that's the thing. The battles between ETs, but there's never any record of ETs came down and wiped everybody off the face of the earth.
Never.
It was a great flood.
Never. Even even
when they possibly could easily. They have the technology. We got pitchforks. They got spaceships. It's an uneven fight.
No, they're beyond that kind of horrible thinking. But even Travis Walton, who had his remarkable experience, he now believes that when he jumped into that tractor beam, which is literally what he did, he jumped into it and then was dropped from a huge height. He believes that he died, and that the ETs healed him and revived him. And he saw ETs that were not only grays, but humanoids on the craft where he was for, I guess, a week, actually.
Wow. Now, I got a final question here, because we've been doing a study on the law of one. I don't know if you're familiar with the law.
Oh, of course. Yes.
Well, they talk about a harvest in there, as well as Christianity talk about rapture. There's this allusion to a harvest coming. What are your feelings on that?
That's kind of a disturbing word.
It is.
I have a feeling that may not be what they mean in the way that we are thinking of it. The way I would interpret that, from having done a bit of study with the law, the way I would interpret that is people who are ready to move up to the fifth dimension will.
Okay.
But there's always the power of choice. And people who are not ready, who don't want to be ready, who are still involved with violence or drugs or racism or, God knows what, they will be allowed to stay in the third density for as long as they wish. So there will be, I used the word culling earlier, but it's a similar word. I think that what that really means is when people are ripe, when they are ripe, when they are ready, that is part of the natural process that we move into a dimension with a higher vibratory rate. And, which is why, not everybody can see spirits. They're just simply in a dimension where everything is moving faster and vibrating quickly. We just can't perceive it with our human eye. So I think, although the word harvest bugs me too, I have a feeling that that's what they mean. When people are ripe, when they are ready, they will be able to move into a wonderful state of being.
In that book, he describes the three types of people: the ones who are already there and were ready to go, and that high vibration, as you were talking about. And then there's the middle, which is the ones who are on the edge of, getting there, but they just don't quite have it yet. They just need a little help. And then there's the ones who are just too far gone, and they're not even going to help them.
No,
because they're just never going anywhere.
I wonder if that's what Jesus meant, not to be of this world.
Yes, I do. I believe that. Remember that Jesus in his last years, he did an awful lot of studying. He traveled with his uncle, St. Joseph of Arimathea. They went all through India, so he understood, the Vedic traditions. They went into the Celtic lands where St. Joseph of Arimathea had silver mines and copper mines, and there was a lot of learning going on. But I think that's exactly what he was talking about. And, he never said, I'm the son of God. He said, I'm the son of man, a messenger, really, just like the Prophet Muhammad, a messenger. So I believe that many of the ideas that he used and spoke about in allegory had to do with that concept of the evolution and the openness of the spirit. And what he said, no one comes to the Father but by me. To me, that just means unless you are spiritually ready, unless you do these disciplines and perfect your meditation or whatever, that is the only way to arrive at a higher vibration.
Right. That makes more sense than,
That's what I think anyway.
Yeah.
I agree, because we've kind of lost touch with a lot of that stuff, with our instantaneous wants and desires.
Oh my goodness, yes.
We don't don't have time or patience. We have the patience of a goldfish. We want everything now. And that's why a lot of people are dropping out of the church thing, because I can get on the internet and I can get whatever I want right now, information, everything from the goods on my table to the information I need through these big giant data centers. We had show on that too. But the sitting, meditating, praying to God and doing all these things is out the door, because it takes too long. People don't want to sit there. They can't. They just physically don't want to do it anymore. Mentally.
We have to move past that too. We have right now a global, artificially generated ADHD situation, where that it's behavioral, it's environmental. Every time those kids, look at their little Jim Jam or whatever the hell they're doing, they get a dopamine bump.
Yeah,
it's actually a process addiction. It's very closely related to gambling or looking at pornography or something like that. So all of that is going to, and we're starting to become aware. Most of the young parents I know now are really working on restricting is maybe the wrong word, but managing the amount of time their kids spend on media. And it can be done. My grandkids are managed by my son in that way. I don't interfere, but I think I agree with what he's doing. That
Yeah.
I agree with it in principle. I mean, there's a time when they can go on the computer, but not or on a phone, but not all day.
Unfortunately, we didn't know that when we were raising our kids. Of course.
No, my kids had to be pulled out of the basement, pale and shaking, because they were on they were gaming. That was it. It wasn't really an online thing at that point so much, but those games were just as dopamine inducing.
Oh yeah, we didn't know. You see, we didn't know.
No idea.
But
no idea. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
No, that's exactly me too. And I've noticed that my kids are restricting the screen time as well. That we have to be in the balance here. We can't just be sitting here on the screen. We need to do other things. Otherwise, they're not going to learn anything.
That's right.
So that's great. That's great to see that things are moving forward. And but yeah, I can't wait for all that.
It's all coming, guys.
Gone and
Well, I just want to thank you so much for having me on to chat with you. I feel like we just scratched the surface, but I'd love to come back and join you anytime you'll have me. And if anyone wants to reach me, they can always do so through my website, which is lightworkhypnosis.com. And I will be, if you just want to talk about something, I follow up on everything. It may take me a minute, but I will respond. And I do want to hear from you. I want to hear from your listeners and viewers, and any place that I can help or provide support, I'm thrilled to do it.
Awesome. I was just going to segment into that, but there you go. You did it for me. So awesome. So all her information is down in the description. I got your YouTube there as well. I don't know how often do you guys post there. It's been a few months, I think.
All the time. We have we're constant. We upload, I think, 3 shows a month, something like that. Okay. So our whole catalog is going up, and we're doing new shows too. So.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. So make sure you go subscribe there and check out the website. And of course, I got Robert's link in there as well as my link. So, go and check out all our links in the description. And any last minute things that you guys want to bring up on this show?
I just want to say, don't be afraid. Fear is the killer. There's nothing to be afraid of. Yeah. And whatever the truth is, you're already able to handle it. So do not be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
That's great advice.
Yeah. Absolutely. I want to add one little thing to it. Just for the people, since I did experience talking to someone who had an experience recently, and I think I was talking to you about before the show. He was really afraid to tell me or tell anyone about his experience, and I think you just provided a little bit of insight to that. So don't be afraid, people. Don't be afraid. Reach out.
There are wonderful people to talk to. There are wonderful people to talk to. There are online groups where everybody is very compassionate if you don't want to talk to me. But there's a lot of support out there. Do not be afraid. There's nothing wrong with you. You're a special person who has gifts, and that's why you've had these experiences.
Yes, absolutely. There you go. So I hope you guys got something out of this show. If you did, leave us a thumbs up and maybe a comment down below will be great. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't. And stay tuned because we got a lot more shows coming. So with that, I'll say goodbye, guys. And I hope to have you on again, Lesley. It was great to have you on.
Thank you so much, Nina and Robert. And thank you for all that you do. You're part of this, That's my next book is going to be called Midwives of Disclosure. Ooh. And that's about people like yourselves who are birthing the new era.
Right on. Well, I'll have to go and check that out for sure.
All right. Okay, guys. Take good care. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.